Hi everyone, Pam Gregory. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of June and the full moon that we have coming up in Capricorn on the 21st or 22nd, depending on where in the world you live. Now, I mentioned in the last video, the Cancer solstice video, that this period in time is really marking an accelerated collapse of the old order. From this point on, through the rest of this year and into next, an accelerated collapse of the old order. But that also means it's likely to get louder but more hollow. Scenery is collapsing all around, and so don't be surprised if events at the 3D level become much louder, more dramatic, more colorful. Hold your course, hold your focus, hold your attention on creating new Earth, because that's where we're headed. Because I'm filming this on the 6th, just to remind you that on the 8th, Mars is at the anaretic degree, what's called the anaretic degree, the last degree of Aries, its own sign. And when planets are at their anaretic degree, they can very often express in less positive ways to help us recognize that and to shed that old behavior pattern. So Mars is in myth, god of war. In its own sign, it's very strong. So we may see greater assertiveness in the world. That's on the 8th and 9th. You can also use it very positively for your own drive and focus on a project you're working on. Then on the 11th, we have a square between Mars and Pluto at 1 degree of Taurus Aquarius. Now, we had a square between Mars and Pluto back on October the 7th, 2023. That was in the late degrees of the cardinals, and that was the day, of course, that Hamas attacked Israel. So this can be a very strong, assertive energy, might makes right, power plays in the world. It's tremendous for your own willpower and focus. It can also be a struggle between individual inner authority, Mars, and top-down external authority. So it can work in that way. So, but just generally through this period, 8th through the 11th, 12th, just stay peaceful, stay calm, and stay very much operating from your inner authority, your sovereignty, and your center. We also have Uranus starting to move forwards to new degrees where it hasn't been in this cycle, in this current cycle. So it's moving from 25 to 28 degrees from now till October. It hasn't been at those degree points for 84 years. So if you have any planets round about 25 to 28 degrees of the fixed signs, and those are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, you may be feeling this as really wanting change, wanting more freedom, wanting more variety, feeling the maverick in you, wanting to be more authentic, more creative, breaking the rules, that kind of thing. And that's the urge from Uranus. And Uranus usually signals things that we have already outgrown. So see where 25 to 28 degrees of Taurus is falling in your chart, but also if you have any planets or points at those degrees in any fixed signs as well. Now, Neptune is at 29 degrees of Pisces, its own sign, very last degree of the zodiac, all of this month and all the way through until early September. It moves direct on the 7th of December, and it begins to enter zero of Aries on the 30th of March next year. But we'll spend quite a bit of time also at this 29 degrees of Pisces. So I'm having a whole conversation with Heather Ainsworth next week about this. So I'll leave a lot of the detail till then. But to me, this really is signaling not the end of the world, but the end of a world, most certainly. Neptune, particularly when it's in Pisces, it can relate to any deception or illusion or veils that have been pulled over our eyes. It's related to the media, to pharmaceutical drugs, to toxicity, to water, pollution in water. It's related to blood, particularly when it's in Pisces, and the immune system. It's also related very positively to spirituality, to healing, to a sense of oneness and connection with all living beings. It's quite ethereal, and it's highly creative. It's connected to aesthetics. It's connected to religion, particularly Christianity. Remember the religion linked to the fishes, fishes of man. It's related to victimhood as well. Surrendering your power. But now I think it is already on the world axis. Know that the world axis, or what's also called the Aries point, isn't just 0 of Aries. It's anywhere from 28 degrees of the mutable signs into 2 degrees of the cardinal signs. Those are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. So Neptune here is already on the world axis, and that means all of those things I've just referred to and more that I'll be talking about with Heather are very much going to be on the public stage this year and next. And it's very interesting actually, because we have other astrological signatures that, because Neptune, particularly at the end of Pisces, can suggest a kind of fog that we can't see through. It's things not being clear. And with the increased use of AI, there's a very strong theme happening at the moment of what's true, what's not. We can't see what's clear. However, we have some astrological aspects that will help us with clarity. And they are the North Node in Aries, very much to do with our sense of clarity and sovereignty and inner authority. Also, Uranus is very activated in this second half of the year. And so that brings in truth, awakening, a piercing sword of clarity into the fog that may be Neptune. But for a variety of astrological reasons, and reasons we can already see happening in the world, we will have to use great discernment. What's true, what's not, because things are going to look very real with AI, even when they're not. So drop into your heart and ask for guidance. Drop into your breath. Turn inwards, because out there is going to get very, very busy. Jupiter in Gemini, super busy, lots of drama, lots of color, and also super confusing, potentially. So turn inwards. This is teaching us. It's teaching us to use our inner guidance, our intuition. So as we move into sort of 16th, 17th of the month, we have both Mercury and Venus on those days at 29 degrees of Gemini, squaring Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. So much activation at these last degrees and beginning degrees, endings, beginnings. And so this is about, very often the anaretic degree brings in a sense of urgency for us, an urgency to do something. So here, because it's in Gemini, it's the urgency to make the right choice from all the information, the urgency to make the right choice. But what is the right choice with so much distraction and so much fog? Neptune. And it's, again, a suggestion to use our intuition, Neptune, our inner guidance. Turn inwards. But yes, that's going to be an interesting time. So try and make the right choice, because your choices obviously will take you onto different timelines. With every choice we make, it's like twigs going off a branch. Every choice we make at every bifurcation, we're moving to a different timeline. So be as wise and conscious in your choices as you can be, and keep your eagle's perch. Keep the big vision, keep the long vision as we move forwards. Have New Earth as your constant context. So then we have the Cancer solstice. That's happening on the 20th. do look at that video below, because that's such a vital part of this second half of June. As I say, it strikes the tuning fork for the next 3 months. And then very soon after that, on the 21st, the next day, at 6:07 p.m. Pacific, and on the 22nd, the day after that, 2:07 a.m. UK time, we have the full moon happening in Capricorn. So this full moon is strengthened because it is so close to the Cancer solstice. So let's now take a look at that, and I'll talk you through it. Okay, so as always, I set this for England, where I live, and we can see we always have sun and moon opposite each other at a full moon. We can see that the moon is at 1°07 of Capricorn, and the sun is at 1:07 of Cancer. And it's very interesting because there is another full moon in Capricorn happening on the 21st of July at 29 degrees of Capricorn. That's very interesting because, of course, as we know, that's where Pluto has been hovering and will continue to hover this year. Final degree of Capricorn representing the old order. So Capricorn is about government, corporations, top-down institutions. It's about big business. It's about big banking, all of those things. So what is interesting here is that we actually have a T-square, moon, Neptune, sun. Now, if Neptune had already just tipped into 0 or 1 degrees of Aries, we could see that very clearly. So it's an out of sign T-square, but nevertheless, it's tight and it's operational. So just to say also that this full moon is opposing Venus in the US chart cast for 4th of July, 1776, 10 past 5 in the afternoon, Philadelphia. That's the chart most astrologers use for the US. So the US Venus always has the generalized meaning of the currency of the country, so the US dollar. Venus in that chart also rules the 6th house. 6th house is related to employment in the country, but also the health of the people, people's health. It also rules the 10th house, very interestingly, of rulership and government, and the 11th house of politics. So this is really fascinating for the US, because what this T-square to Neptune is saying, remember all the things I've just talked about with Neptune, you know, has there been any illusion, deceptions, any of that kind of thing relating to those areas? You know, if we're looking at the US chart, I mean, this is global, obviously, but, you know, health, government, politics. Remember all those themes of media, pharmaceutical drugs, toxicity, all of that, the veils, because this full moon shines a bright light. And this full moon will be making some of those things clear, particularly because it is also on the world axis. Remember, up to 2 degrees of the cardinal sign. So it's on the world axis. So whatever is unfolding at this full moon is going to be on the public stage in a bigger way. Now, 3 planets in Cancer here. Venus is very comfortable in Cancer. This is the need for emotional security, needing a safe nest to retreat to, feeling secure in your sanctuary, your home. So there's a need for that, but there's also a need here for practical security, financial security that will be strong at this time as well. So it's going to be a very interesting time, and I also think this big business, big banking is going to be in the frame as well, because that's part of Capricorn energy. Now, we also have the sun, this dotted green line, quincunx to Uranus. That brings in a lot of the Uranus in Aquarius themes of a crisis around the science. How reliable has the science been? Technology, crisis around technology and aviation. I've talked quite a lot about that, particularly in recent videos. I've talked quite a lot about that. And, those things in one way will keep on running through the period that Pluto is in Aquarius until 2044. But Pluto will also transform those areas. It will reveal aspects of those that are not for our highest good, but it will also transform. It will transform science. It will transform engineering, innovation, healing technologies, definitely aviation. I think our air travel is going to change out of all recognition. May go through a bit of a dip first, but then change very dramatically in terms of speed and sophistication. It can raise issues around top-down power. Yet again, we're very familiar with those. And always think that when issues around top-down power come in, it's always a seesaw. It's a seesaw between our sense of our own sovereignty and the effect that top-down power is having on us. Because if we're strong in our inner authority, our sovereignty, we are going to be less impacted by that top-down power, that power over. The moon is conjunct dwarf planet Ixion. I've mentioned Ixion in the past. These dwarf planets generally have about a 300, up to a 300-year orbit. But Ixion, you might remember, is the lawless brother of Pluto. In myth, not a great myth either. He murdered his father-in-law, was thrown out of heaven. Zeus gave him a second chance, and he then tried to rape Zeus's wife Hera, and at that point he was strapped to a burning wheel and spun off into eternity. However, there's another side to Ixion symbolism, which is finding joy through simplicity. Finding joy through simplicity, going your own way, out of the mainstream, doing it on your own terms, and finding joy. And I think that's very much what this full moon is shining a light on too. And it's also shining a light on how many of us are doing that. We also have linked to that Nessus, who I talked about in the Cancer solstice video, conjunct Saturn. Now, the reason that Nessus's symbolism is even more important here, not only that he was the son of Ixion, and had similar tendencies, I have to say, but also Saturn is the ruler of this full moon because it rules Capricorn. So for the sake of completeness, I'm going to talk about the myth of Nessus, because this is a new one for us, really. Nessus, along with Chariclo and Chiron, is a centaur. It's called Centaur, half man, half horse, 125-year orbit. Melanie Reinhardt is the expert on these centaurs. I'll put her website link below. But in the myth, he was asked by Hercules to ferry Hercules' wife, Deianeira, I think it's pronounced, I'll put her spelling below, Deianeira, across a river. Nessus, similar to his father, tried to rape her. Hercules came to his wife's rescue and shot and killed Nessus using a poisoned arrow. As Nessus lay dying, and this is all from Melanie Reinhardt, he gave his poisoned blood to Deianeira, Hercules' wife, telling her that it was a magic love potion, telling her she could use it if ever she suspected Hercules was being unfaithful to her, and he would instantly come back to her. Deianeira believed Nessus, and when at one point she thought that Hercules was being unfaithful, she put some of Nessus's poisoned blood on Hercules' shirt. He wore the shirt and was poisoned by the blood and died. And Deianeira at that point was so distraught, she realized that she'd been deceived. She committed suicide because she'd killed her husband. So there's all kinds of themes and threads in here of deception, gaslighting, poisoning, blood, regret, all of those things. And remember also, Neptune is linked, particularly in Pisces, to blood and the immune system too. So the shorthand for Nessus for Melanie Reinhardt is the buck stops here. The buck stops here. And she talks about Nessus being linked to abuse of power. Remember the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, 12th of January 2020, set up a theme of the abuse of power. It was just before the pandemic. But also that Nessus brings opportunities to understand and release big, deep patterns of helplessness, being taken advantage of and oppressed. We have such clear themes here. Nessus activations, Melanie says, correspond with times when things really do end, finish, and transcend to another level. The healing, the true healing can then begin. And that Nessus has the power to blow up and shatter the reality of Saturn, the ruler of this full moon, and very much related to 3D, as ruler of Capricorn, governments, corporations, institutions, big banks, big business, top-down power, rules and regulations, etc. So this is very interesting. Nessus is even stronger here. It's exact to the degree, conjunct Saturn, and it's going to hover. They're going to be there together for some months. So also something else I wanted to point out is that Sedna is at the midpoint of Uranus and Jupiter. So almost Sedna is pulling back the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had on the 20th of April. So, and what this is about, I believe, is to understand that we have so much to discover, not only in the deep sea. She's the goddess of the Inuit goddess of the Arctic oceans, but also out in the cosmos. Jupiter and Uranus were sky gods. So we have so much more to discover in the heavens, the cosmos, the galaxies, as well as the deep seas. And that's something I feel very, very deeply. We have Salacia at the North Node. Salacia, 11 degrees of Aries, exactly by degree conjunct the North Node. And this is about our collective path of soul's growth being about, again, understanding the seas. Salacia is mermaid energy, but also understanding the light. Salacia is linked to that shimmering sunlight, moonlight on the sea. She's linked to photonic light. It is light that is carried by the water. It's all about frequency and energy. It's light that's carried by the water. So, yeah, absolutely. Some incredible symbolism here. Then, as we move right into the end of the month, we have on the 29th, Mars semi-square Neptune. This is excellent for any kind of spiritual practice, yoga, tai chi, qigong. It's a kind of energy going into the spiritual. But it can make you kind of lose focus a bit. Something that you were energetic and enthusiastic about, Mars, may kind of dissolve in front of you, just dissipate. It's a minor aspect, so it may just be felt on the day. But what's much more important is that Saturn is stationary direct. Stationary retrograde on the 29th. So we will feel that several days to either side. Now, whenever a planet is stationary retrograde, its symbolism is magnified. So Saturn is all about greater attempted control, more rules, more regulations. It's very much about government, big government. It could also relate to the military because Saturn is very linked to the military, that kind of discipline. It could bring up issues around water because it's in Pisces. And it's going to hover for the next few months, Saturn, from 19 back to 12 degrees of Pisces. until kind of October, November time. See which house those degrees fall in your chart, because Saturn will bring, it's great for focus, actually. It's tremendous for focus and where work has to be done, or building work or repairs, that kind of thing. I think I mentioned in the last video, it's kind of crazy for me because I've got this moving through my fourth house. The number of water repairs I've been involved in since Saturn moved into my fourth house. My cesspit pump, my dishwasher, my washing machine flooded the kitchen. It's all been around water repairs and water issues. But you can use it much more positively. If it's moving through your third house, fantastic for focusing the mind on some kind of mental project, study, research, that kind of thing. We are already into the energy of Neptune moving stationary retrograde on the 2nd of July. We'll feel that one about a week to either side. So it's at 29 degrees 55 of Pisces, within 5 minutes of the end of the zodiac. I mean, incredible before it starts to, it retrogrades back at this point. So all of those Neptunian things I've talked about could be very highlighted at this time. And it is already Neptune also itself on the world axis, as I pointed out. See which house that is activating for you. Where is 29 degrees of Pisces falling in your chart? What is dissolving from your own life? What's falling away? What's dissolving? What is just no longer relevant? And it's very interesting that it is already operational on the IC, the base of the US chart. It doesn't get to exactly the IC until kind of springtime next year, April, May. There could be issues around water, issues around flooding, that kind of thing, but it is also already opposing the MC, the midheaven of that US chart. Again, we're back to leadership and government. Again, for the US, Pluto return, full moon, aspecting Venus, which rules the 10th house because it rules Libra, and the midheaven in that chart is 1 degree of Libra. So, we're getting repeating themes here very clearly. So with all of this, remember to stay on your eagle's perch. Stay on your eagle's perch. Just observe what's leaving your life. What circumstances, what jobs, what people, what relationships, but also be very aware of what is emerging, what is coming in for you. All of us are going to be feeling much greater psychic sensitivity in ways that we can barely define. Certainly telepathy, certainly healing, certainly tuning in to animals, trees, nature, sense of oneness, but some other abilities that I don't believe we can even define yet. Very, very sensitive. So you'll have to be very observant with this. And just think, if you could see your future self as a hologram in a meditation, step into your future self. Who is that future self? How are they living? What's their state of being? How are they spending their time? What are their points of focus? That can be very instructive to start to pull back that energy right now to feed who you are going to become. And I'd also really use breath work a lot, because this is so incredibly simple and free for everybody. So I'll stop sharing now, I think, because the other aspects I've talked about before, this long-running square to Hermia from Pluto, I've talked about a lot. The quincunx to Sedna, that, these will be ongoing all of this year and all of next. So I've talked about many of these before, so I'm going to stop sharing here. But just in terms of the breath, and I do this, many times, well, several times a day for sure. Just particularly if you're feeling a bit frazzled and fried by all the information coming at you, the busyness, the craziness. I mean, my days are absolutely jam-packed. So I will check in on my state of being, which could be quite zuzzy at that point. And I'll just, okay, shut my eyes, drop into the breath. And by that, I mean 100% of your focus is on your breath. 100%. You are just the breath and you are nothing else. You're out of the mind completely. You are just the breath. And let the breath breathe you. Just let the breath happen without any sense of control or push or effort. So just let the breath be. And within quite a short time, you'll notice that the breath is sort of slowing and deepening. And just while you feel comfortable, again, no rush, no push, keep it soft. Just pause for a couple of seconds at the end of the inhale and a couple of seconds at the end of the exhale. And just gradually see if you can very slowly extend that out breath so it's a little bit longer than the in breath. And see if you can also extend the pause on the exhale. The longer you can hold the pause on the exhale, the healthier you are, by the way. It's also a time I learned from Rory Duff last Saturday that when a healer's energy was measured, it's when she was emitting the most healing light was on the exhale hold. Isn't that interesting? It's the space in between. It's the gap in between. So the more we can hold on the exhale comfortably without any push, it's just a few seconds, that's absolutely fine. This gets easier with practice. You are changing your biomarkers in every moment. You're reducing your cortisol levels, you're boosting your immune system, you're changing. If you had blood samples taken before and after, they would be very different in terms of your actual physiology. So when you've had a few moments, just gradually bring yourself back, open your eyes, and then check in again on your state of being. How do you feel versus when you started? You feel a little calmer, a little more peaceful? The more you can do, I mean, how simple is this? How simple is this? For free. Everybody can do this. And the more you can do this through your day, just a few minutes, here and there, 3 or 4 minutes here and there, the more you start to feel that your default point is your inner self, not outer there. That's crazy out there. A zillion things going on, a zillion dramas. We're never going to be able to solve them with logic. Coming inside regularly with the breath teaches you that this is where you operate your life from. This is where you define your reality from. This sense of center, power, sovereignty. I know who I am. I know that I can change my reality because everything comes from consciousness. Everything. Everything comes from the invisible. So it's really, I mean, everybody can do that. And make your state of being, I've said this before, but make your state of being your absolutely top priority above all else, because everything in your reality cascades from that. And also remember how far we've come in the last 4 years. If you think back to the beginning of 2020 and all that was happening there, when we were kind of overwhelmed and nobody quite knew what was happening, think how far we've come. If you are still standing, pat yourself on the back, you've done well. And we really have become the butterflies. And you'll never be a caterpillar again. You'll never be a caterpillar again because you can't stuff the butterfly back through the chrysalis. That never happens. Butterflies never become caterpillars, ever, because they have such an expanded view of the world versus the caterpillar, such an expanded perception of being able to fly around and colors and scents and, massive expansion versus the caterpillar. They're never going to go back. It wouldn't be physically possible. Once you've seen everything a butterfly's seen, you can't unsee it and become a caterpillar again. So this sense of expanded consciousness and expanded perception is absolutely where we are headed. And that is getting stronger every week with our simple 15-minute meditation and everything you're doing along the way. And remember, all the little things you do in your day, smiling at someone in a queue, laughing with a friend, being kind to a neighbor, all of those really simple moments in your day are actually feeding New Earth. They are feeding New Earth. And if you're not doing those things, if you're following the fearful things and the big scary things, then you're actually feeding the old system, not New Earth. So be very conscious, very on your eagle's perch and very aware of what you're doing and where we are heading in this incredibly unique evolutionary period for humanity. So I hope that's helped you. God bless for sticking with me, and we're welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love in every moment. God bless. Thank you for listening. I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.